Have you ever looked at your blood test results and thought, I have no idea what these numbers mean? Ferritin, TSAT, what even are they?
If you live with fatigue, chronic illness or ME, you've probably had these tests done, and maybe you've been told everything looks normal.
But normal doesn't always mean optimal, and sometimes your body will be struggling long before your numbers fall outside of the standard ranges.
So let's make sense of what these iron markers actually mean. Iron deficiency is one of the most common health issues in the world, and literally billions of people deal with the awful symptoms of iron deficiency without even realizing it.
And so today, we're going to be looking at the guidelines that the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Health and the UK NICE guidelines use to diagnose iron deficiency. But for some absolutely crazy reason, the labs don't give these ranges to doctors. And so you may have been told that your iron level is normal when it really isn't.
Having good iron levels is particularly important for pregnant women because iron is essential for both your health and your baby's ability to grow and develop normally. This is because iron deficiency in children is associated with developmental delays as well as behaviour and attention disorders.
And we looked more closely at this in our last video, which I'll put here in case you missed it. And if you are low in iron, it can impact everything from your energy levels to your memory and your mood, and even your immune system.
So dig out your blood tests.
And if you haven't seen our videos before, we're really pleased that you've found us, because our purpose is to help you take control of your own health.
Each of our videos is 100% based on scientific evidence and provides simple steps that you can take to improve your own health. And I'll be back at the end of the video for a fun fact.
Being deficient in iron has serious health consequences, and it can occur well before your doctor will detect it. And unfortunately, it is extremely common, and it affects 2 billion people, especially women and children. That's 1/4 of the world's population. That is a huge number of people whose health is suffering due to a lack of iron, because globally it's estimated that 40% of all children under the age of 5 and nearly that number of pregnant women are affected by anemia. And this condition has caused 50 million years of healthy life lost due to disability just in 1 year. That was in 2019, according to the World Health Organization. So if you're struggling with focus and energy, getting enough iron is absolutely key to you feeling your best and to support your family's brain health. And the really good news is that iron deficiency is preventable and treatable. And for kids with developmental delays, making sure that they have enough iron can significantly improve their cognitive function and their behaviour. And for women, heavy menstrual cycles can increase the risk of low iron. So how can we determine if our health problems are caused by iron deficiency? Please do consult your doctor for professional and personal advice, because there are other illnesses and diseases that can cause the similar symptoms, and this video really is just for information only, and it's not medical advice. Do you have a copy of your latest blood test handy? I don't mind if you just pause me and go and find them, because it's going to make much more sense if you have them to look at. And while you're at it, grab a pen and a notepad as well, because I'm going to provide you with a lot of information. So please do write notes about your tests and your levels so that you can keep track. You don't need to write everything down, only write down what applies to you. So if you feel confused or if I'm going too fast, just pause me and rewind me a bit, because there's no rush. Because I realise this information may be difficult to grasp, especially if your doctor has told you that you're not iron deficient. But the information I'm going to give you is from scientific literature, and all the links will be in the comments below. So now you can be excited that there are real things that you can do to help yourself and your family that will make you feel a lot better and regain your health, because you can do this. So let's have a look at iron tests. Something to know, is that iron tests are designed to be done while you're fasting. So if you're planning to get tested, please take the test before you eat breakfast. And to understand your iron tests, it will be really helpful if I briefly explain what happens to the iron in our body, especially how we store it and how it's transported, because this will make looking at the tests you have a lot easier. So think of your iron system like a little delivery company. We've got a warehouse to store the iron, and we have a fleet of trucks to move it around, and we have the cargo, which is packages of iron that need to be moved around our body. So when we eat a meal that's rich in iron, our body breaks down the food in our stomach, and we need strong stomach acid, which releases the iron molecules. So you can run into issues with absorbing iron if you are on PPI medication, because that's reducing your stomach acid. And that can have serious consequences for the amount of iron and other nutrients that you can absorb. So if you are on PPI medication, it really is important that you check your iron levels and also your B12 levels, because you will be struggling to absorb. Actually, there's quite a lot of nutrients that you're going to be struggling to absorb. So you need to speak to your doctor about this. So assuming that you've eaten an iron-rich meal and you've managed to break down the iron particles in your stomach, these iron molecules are then absorbed in our digestive tract and they get released into our bloodstream. But iron isn't a safe molecule to have floating around in our blood. And so we have a really wonderful system that keeps the iron safe, but also ready for action for when our cells need it. So the first iron test that you may have is serum iron. And the serum iron is our fleet of trucks that pick up the iron and transport it. So when iron enters into our bloodstream, it gets picked up by a protein that's called transferrin. Transferrin is extremely attracted to the iron that we've just eaten. It's like a magnet, it just sticks to it. So the serum iron test is literally just measuring how much iron we have in our blood that's attached to the transferrin. So when we eat, it's like we've just had a delivery of iron, and so our iron levels go up. But if you haven't eaten for a while, it will go down. So because the iron level in your blood constantly fluctuates depending on what you've recently eaten, it's not really a very reliable picture of your true iron status. So if you have serum iron tests that say that your iron levels are normal, it really doesn't mean that you have good stores of iron. So we're not really going to dwell on this one. The next test that we're going to look at is a much more useful one, and that's measuring your ferritin levels. Ferritin is your iron storage protein. It's like a warehouse that's full of your spare iron. And when your ferritin levels drop, your shelves in your warehouse are really starting to look quite empty. So it's very easy to get a ferritin blood test from your doctor, or you can do home tests to find out your level. And if you'd like to see how easy it is to perform a blood test at home, I have a video that explains the process here. So testing your ferritin levels is absolutely essential, and if you haven't got that test, then please get it tested as soon as possible, and then come back to this video and check your results. But even more importantly, when you do get your results, do not believe your doctor if they tell you that your ferritin level is normal. It is very important that you check your ferritin level against the official hematology ranges and not the ranges that the lab provides to your doctor. And I'm going to put links to the sources of information in the comments below in this video. Right then, I'm going to be presenting several different scenarios in this video, and I really don't want to confuse you. So if at any point your labs indicate that you are iron deficient, please take this information seriously. Write down why you are iron deficient, and you can start working to correct the issue immediately, because this is based on evidence from reputable sources. And this video is the second part of a series of 3 videos all about iron. And in the next one, we're going to explain how we can correct our iron levels. So please feel free to skip to that video as soon as your results confirm that you are actually iron deficient. The first video in the series went into the top 10 important roles in our body for iron and how being deficient has a really terrible effect on you and your family's health, and how it is especially important if you are pregnant. And that video will be linked here. So let's get started. What is your ferritin number? Please write it down because we're going to keep coming back to this number. So the NICE guidelines have this to say about iron deficiency anemia. In all people, a serum ferritin level of less than 30 micrograms a litre confirms the diagnosis of iron deficiency. The minimum number we are looking for ferritin is 30. Ferritin is measured in the same way everywhere, so there isn't any confusion about this test results. It doesn't matter where you live. So this is why you clearly need to check your own ferritin levels, because this clearly says that if your levels are lower than 30, you don't have enough iron in your body to function properly. But this isn't the range that the labs give to your doctors. The range that the labs provide to the doctors shows that the ferritin normal range for a woman in the UK starts at 11. And so worryingly, many doctors will tell you that your iron levels are fine if they are 11 or above. Now, this is shocking. I see so many blood tests from different people, and I would say a huge number of the blood tests that I look at for women, their ferritin levels are well below 30, and the doctor has told them that their level is fine. Now, I think really we need to start a campaign about this, because the labs need to tell the doctors what the NICE guidelines say. I don't know what the ranges that they use are based on. They just seem to be average ranges of people taking the test. They're not based on science. And this is crucial information for women that are getting pregnant or trying to live a healthy life. Having low iron levels is seriously debilitating. So this is really important. However, we can see from the NICE guidelines that 30 or less is the indicator for a very serious and debilitating condition called iron deficiency anemia. Now, you may recall the quote I mentioned earlier. It's from the World Health Organization, and that says, iron deficiency is already advanced by the time anemia is detected. The deficiency has consequences, even when no anemia is clinically apparent. And so remember that 1/4 of the world's population is classed as having iron deficient anemia. And so how many more billions of people, including children, have levels below 30 and they're experiencing the debilitating condition of iron deficiency without ever being diagnosed? So many people are suffering from a lack of mental energy and physical strength and poor immunity with slow growth and wound healing without knowing why they're suffering. And this delay in realizing that they're actually iron deficient can cause irreversible brain damage, especially in young children. So if you have ferritin levels of 30 or below, it is a fact that your iron warehouse is getting pretty empty and you are iron deficient. So I've put a link below to the NICE guidelines, because it is a fact that you are very clearly clinically deficient. So now that you know you are iron deficient, please feel free to forward on to the end of this video to find the link to the next one, and that will help you to work on addressing your iron deficiency. So I'm going to say it again because this is really important. If your ferritin level is 30 or lower, you are definitely deficient in iron. Is it that easy? Absolutely. I'm going to repeat it again. Ferritin 30 or below means that you need to increase your iron levels and you will feel a lot better. But what if your ferritin is over 30 and you still feel terrible? Well, we've got a lot more to look at. So stick with me here, because we're going to now look at if you've got ferritin between 30 and 100. So this might look as though you're normal on paper, and it's very likely that if your ferritin is in this range, your doctor will say that your level is normal. But on a biochemical level, your iron levels are still way too low. And we're going to look at a few other tests that are going to help you sort this out. So it's an important point to know that your ferritin level will rise if you have an infection or any type of inflammation or any kind of issues really with your body. It's a protective mechanism that your body uses. So a ferritin level that looks fine might actually be masking you having low levels of iron if you've got an ongoing issue. So that would include having thyroid issues or cancer, if you drink a lot of alcohol, if you're clinically obese, or if you've got a heart condition. So is your ferritin below 100 and do you have a known infection or any kind of inflammation, then it is likely that you are iron deficient. But if you want to know more, there will be some other tests coming up that you can just double check. Now we're going to have a look at if your ferritin is above 100. If your ferritin levels are above 100, your stores may be okay unless you have inflammation again. So if you have inflammation, it will push your ferritin levels up artificially. So stick with me on this and we're going to double check another blood test. If you have a known illness or a health issue and your ferritin levels are even as high as 300, then you may still be iron deficient. And so to check that, we can look at another test called the transferrin saturation percentage, or the TSAT, on your test results. And that can be used to diagnose iron deficiency. Do you remember we talked about transferrin was the protein that sticks to iron to keep it safe when it's being transported in our blood? So transferrin is the main protein in our blood that binds to iron and then it transports it through the body. It's like our iron delivery trucks. So we need to see how full our trucks are. So basically the TSAT shows how much absorbed iron is being safely transported to where it needs to go. It's the percentage of transferrin that is actively working, carrying iron. So remember, this test is designed to be done fasting before breakfast. So if your percentage of TSAT is below 20, it means that you are not transporting much iron, and it is a sign of iron deficiency. And if it's below 10%, then this is really severe. Your body is really struggling to move iron to where you need it. And the NICE guidelines for diagnosing iron deficiency in heart failure uses the range of between 100 and 299 ferritin and TSAT levels at below 20%. So if your transferrin is carrying 20% or less iron, then it's quite safe to say that you are iron deficient. The next level is between 20 and 50%, and that's considered to be a healthy range. But we do have more to look at regarding iron deficiency. But while we're looking at the TSAT percentage tests, I think it's going to be really helpful for you to know a bit more about this in case you do have higher levels. Because if you have levels over 50%, then that can actually suggest that you have iron overload. Now, this is much less common, especially for women, but it is an important thing for you to check, especially if you are taking high amounts of iron to correct your iron deficiency. So this section that we're just going to talk about now is vital to help you understand your future blood tests while you are correcting your iron levels. So this section is just a little insert on testing when you are supplementing with iron. When you're deliberately taking an excess of iron because we want to raise our ferritin levels, it will be normal at that point to have high serum iron and high TSAT levels, because that is literally the only way we can raise our ferritin levels. But you need to make sure you always have enough transferrin available to pick up your incoming iron. Because as I've already said, the TSAT test is designed to be taken when you haven't eaten or you haven't supplemented. But if you are already on a high dose supplement, then when you're checking your blood levels, it is useful to actually do this test a couple of hours after you've taken your iron supplement, and that will help you check how safe your iron dose is. Because our TSAT levels change during the day and they will go up 1 or 2 hours after you've had your iron supplement, and you do not want your transferrin saturation to go into the 80 or 90% range, because otherwise the next batch of iron that you eat, that's going to push it over 100%. It makes sense that your TSAT will be higher when you're treating iron deficiency, but it's very important that you always have enough transferrin in your system to be able to pick up iron that you eat or supplement. So you always need to have spare capacity in your trucks ready for your next cargo. You absolutely don't want to have all your trucks crammed full with no room to pick up anything else. This is important because you don't want to be having any iron that's floating around on its own without being bound to transferrin. Because if you have unbound iron running around in your body, it will wreak havoc on your body. And this is called iron overload or hemochromatosis. And this is when iron is dangerous because it becomes a host for bacteria and pathogens, and it can cause disease and cancers. So free unbound iron, that's iron that is not attached to transferrin, is like fuel that's been spilled out of your petrol tank. It reacts really easy with oxygen and it creates oxidative stress, which is basically rust inside the body. And that oxidative stress can damage our cells and our membranes and our DNA, and it will increase inflammation, and it can feed certain bacteria and pathogens that love iron. And ironically, it will make your fatigue worse. So even though you are trying to increase your energy, if you have too much free iron, it can end up doing the opposite, and it will create more stress for your mitochondria, the very part of your cells that make the energy. So getting your blood test done regularly and keeping an eye on your ferritin and your TSAT percentage is really important, and ensure that it never gets anywhere near 100%. So as I said, it is common when you're supplementing to have a higher iron level and a higher TSAT level percentage. But the important thing is to ensure that your body can safely take in and transport the iron, and that we don't have any unbound iron in our body. And so if you are taking large doses of iron, it's best to split them up into 2 or 3 doses during the day, and this will keep your TSAT percentage well under 70. However, if you do find that your TSAT percentage does go over 70 after you've taken your supplement, then it may be safer to lower your dose and space it out a bit more. So in short, we've looked at ferritin tells you how much iron you've got stored, and the TSAT percentage tells you how full your trucks actually are. So when you look at these two figures together, the story starts to make sense, hopefully. If not, you can rewind me and watch it again. So let's try and make a bit more sense of it. If your ferritin is low and your TSAT is low, that's classic iron deficiency, and it means you're running out of stored iron and you're not transporting enough. If your ferritin level looks normal or high, but your TSAT is still low, that might be what we call a functional iron deficiency, and the iron is trapped in the storage in ferritin, but it's not being able to be used properly due to some sort of inflammation in your body. So now we're going to look at a couple of other tests that are part of the full blood count to see whether we are actually using the iron in our bodies. So the first test we're going to look at is hemoglobin. So let's look at hemoglobin, which is often abbreviated on your blood test as HB. Some countries express this in grams a litre, while in other countries, such as the USA, they'll express it in grams a decilitre. It's simply the same thing, it's just simply the decimal point is shifted one place to the left. The guides say anemia is defined as hemoglobin, HB level, in men aged over 15, hemoglobin below 130 or 13, depending on which country you're in. In non-pregnant women, hemoglobin below 120 or 12. In pregnant women, hemoglobin below 110 or 11. So if your tests fall into this group, it identifies you that you have an absolute iron deficiency. Now, if you remember, hemoglobin is the protein that carries our oxygen around in our blood. So if you have lower levels of hemoglobin, it makes sense that your body and your brain are going to be really deprived of the oxygen that our cells need to function well. Well before your hemoglobin get that low, down to 12, you're going to be suffering from a lack of oxygen to your cells. And anemia is the last stage of iron depletion and deficiency. So if you are diagnosed with anemia, it's of the utmost importance that you increase your iron intake. However, making red blood cells also needs a few other essential ingredients because iron doesn't work alone. You need B12 and B6 and B9, which is folate. They all work hand in hand with iron to make your red blood cells. And you also need to be eating enough protein. So if any of those are low, your body won't be able to build enough healthy red blood cells for you, no matter how much iron you take. Also, low levels of zinc and vitamin A and vitamin E and copper can also have a big impact on how your body transports and utilizes iron. So a deficiency in all sorts of vitamins and minerals can be causing you problems. So I'm going to include a few additional tests that are all very important to check if you are experiencing health issues. But I really love a really useful tool for checking all of your mineral levels, and that's the Doctor's Data Hair Mineral Test. And that includes your levels of iron, zinc, copper, and all the other essential minerals. So I'm able to provide you with a hair test if you'd like one, and I'll give you the information in the comments of how you can order one. But if you're checking your iron levels, it's also very wise at the same time to check your B12 levels, and you want those around the 400 mark. And I've got a video on everything you need to know about B12, which I'll link here. Folate's also really important, and so is vitamin D, because iron deficiency is linked to low levels of vitamin D. They work together in different ways. So if you're iron deficient and you're struggling to increase your iron, it may be because you have low vitamin D. And it's a bit of a catch-22 situation because vitamin D helps regulate a hormone that controls how much iron you absorb, and it's a two-way link. So low levels of vitamin D can worsen a person's iron deficiency. And if you're iron deficient, you're going to have trouble with your vitamin D. And that's absolutely crucial for your bone health and your immune function. There's 2 different measuring ranges that you need to test, so I'll put them on the screen because it can be confusing and you need to check which range your vitamin D is measured in. And one last test that can be really helpful is H. pylori, which is a bacteria that lives in some people's stomach, and that lowers stomach acid, which means that they can't get the iron out of their food very easily. And you may not even know that you have it because it can be in your stomach for years, and that can have a really big impact on the nutrients that you're able to absorb from your food. And if you do have H. pylori, it can cause you big problems when you try to increase your iron intake. So it's worth getting that tested. So hopefully this has given you some clues and the resources that you can show your doctor if you need to about the correct ranges to diagnose iron deficiency in your individual situation. If you've found that you are iron deficient, then there's plenty that you can do to increase your iron levels. And if this has helped you to make sense of your tests, please share it with somebody else who's trying to understand theirs, because when you understand the full picture, not just the ferritin number, you start to see how everything connects, how it affects your gut, your immune system, your energy, and how you recover. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel if you find that this kind of content is helpful, because it makes a significant difference to us and to the number of people that YouTube recommends this video to. And if you click the little bell, you'll receive a notification the next time I release a video, because we're constantly trying to make sense of the science behind fatigue. So don't forget to watch my video on how to increase your iron levels safely if you are iron deficient. Thanks so much for watching. A lot of work and research goes into these videos. These are not the surface level ChatGPT information that is starting to flood YouTube at the moment. All the information in these videos is absolute gold for your health, but unfortunately it's not mainstream, and so ChatGPT won't find it for you. This is something that has taken years of digging to find the answers to. So please do subscribe, because we're very small and we're quite niche, and it would be lovely if more people could come to know this information and it could become a bit more mainstream, because this information is absolutely vital for so many people to know. So thanks for watching, and here's Elliot.
Welcome back to my Curiosity Corner. I have a fun fact for you today. Did you know that the Eiffel Tower actually grows on a warm summer day? It's all because of thermal expansion. When the sun heats the iron, the metal expands very slightly, enough to make the entire tower grow by just a few millimeters. But here's the bit I find even more fascinating. Because the sun only heats one side of the tower at a time, that side expands more than the others. This means that the whole structure tilts very slightly away from the sun. And as the day goes on, and the sunlight moves, first from the east, and the south, and the west, the top of the tower actually traces out a tiny circular path, about 15 centimeters in diameter. But don't worry, the puddled iron that Gustav Eiffel used is more than strong enough to flex with these small shifts.